But let me say that I'm very inspired by Professor Deepak, who spoke to me previously. It was these days predating the drafting of a convention when I was shouting that human rights of persons with disabilities should triumph over utilitarian goals. That is, in other words, whatever it takes to make it happen, we needed to. So post-convention 2022, it was a really dark day on the 3rd of December here. Very dark in the sense that the Prime Minister was invited at this function organized by the Ministry of Social Security, and he uttered these words: "I'm now resigning from my promise to enact the disability bill as it's coined, because in other words, he was saying that disabled people cost too much." The second thing that we saw on that day was that there were certain people who believe very much in the charitable model of disability, the archaic model, which I have been fighting for the past 30 years, who came to applaud that approach. And that room that they hired, they asked civil servants that they would give them a day off because it was Saturday if they come on that Saturday, so that they could fill in the room, that hall. But fortunately for us, it was only 25% full. And that was live and direct on TV, on the national TV. The worst thing that equally happened on the same day, we learned that a disabled girl that has been supported by Global Rainbow Foundation, a young woman, I should say rather, her employment was terminated on the basis of disability, and the reason advanced were medical reason. And Professor Parasuraman phoned me immediately to ask me to pick the matter up, which I will certainly do. But what I want to say, at this stage is that that's where we need great international support from India, from the United Kingdom, everywhere else, is that we are living in a climate of dictatorship. I would not hide my feelings. It came to a point from 2018 up to date. I am not scared. I'm not scared for my physical integrity. I'm not scared for anything. But there are bizarre things that are happening in this country to restrict the freedom of speech, to prevent us from expressing our views, and especially when it relates to basic and fundamental rights. Today, it has come to a point that not only people with disabilities are being marginalized and discriminated, but everyone who speaks up against this regime. But coming back to disability and the political aspect of it, I fully endorsed the view that now we should and must perceive ourselves as disability rights movements together with other civil society movements as political movements. Not political movements in the sense that we are going to stand as candidates or run for parliaments and so on. Because at the end of the day, if you look at Article 29 of the convention, it talks about a lot about public participation in public life and participation. So I am very inclined to say that for that reality to happen, for the bill to become a reality, and not any kind of bill, but a bill with substance, a bill that can be reasonably implemented, a bill, an eventual act that gives us a fairer and better deal, a bill that would allow people with disabilities to participate in the socio-economic, political and cultural development of this country, a bill that would equally show that there is an economic, social argument for it, because what is happening here, a lot of money is being wasted in the medical assessment of people with disabilities, as opposed to improving their welfare, allowing them to participate in inclusive education. They don't even understand how much this country can gain. And that also has to be explained in terms of true inclusion in this society. So at the end of the day, what I tend to believe is that we are being governed by a group of stupid dictators who do not even understand the real reality of this country, its history, its sense of purpose, and its future. There is no vision. They are blind to the obvious. Not only, I mean, I can understand and empower people with psychosocial and intellectual disabilities, but honestly, this is a government that is mentally retarded. Oliver was talking earlier on how government should have reacted to such a piece of legislation, where research has been carried out, where we as civil society put our energy together, and it is a great sense of patriotism, fighting for equality. But unfortunately, we have a prime minister and a government in this country who still believes that discrimination is normal. Coining me as a lawyer in court as invalid is normal. All of that is normal, and it would go on like that unless we organize ourselves. And I think this 3rd of December movement, its replica in this country, will bring a lot of changes. I'm patiently waiting for Mr. Parsuamen to come back here so that we can brainstorm, recharge our batteries, because I think the 3rd of December should be a reflection of what we have achieved so far. We'll recharge the battery and prepare ourselves for the future. And I think next year is going to be daunting year. Maybe Oliver would recall, that's where I draw a lot of my inspirations from. In the 90s, when I was a young lad at law school in London, I recall government was very reluctant in these days to bring about legislations for change. What we did was we organized ourselves in what was called a direct action group. We trained ourselves with buses. We organized peaceful protests. And here, peaceful protest is the solution because it is still part of Gandhi's land. And what we did, we forced changes. I don't know whether you would recall the 1997 election. The 1997 election, people with disabilities played a big role because we put forward the capacity and the ability of the casting of our vote. But even then, here in Mauritius, there's a lot of talk about general election being rigged. So I don't know whether it's going to be peaceful protests, how it would degenerate. And I don't know whether it's going to be even hunger strike. In a couple of weeks, we'll give you the update. But disability discrimination can't carry on. And also the final thing that I want to tell you, against all these things which are very negative, being a very positive person, being very realistic, I'm recharging my own batteries at the moment to write a book entitled A Blind Lawyer in the Jungle of Mauritius. The work has already started, and I hope if it can't change the mind of the mindless, at least it can shape the heart of the heartless. I end on this note. I believe I have been invited to Dipern, but I want to tell you something very important. You see, apartheid in South Africa would never have ended if there was no international pressure.
Absolutely.
And secondly, I need to tell you one thing which is very important. We need to be very rational in the way we brainstorm we need to strategize a lot, because you see, the thing is, government do not understand the socio-economic and cultural arguments for inclusion. And they still think of disability as costing money, when in fact we can contribute to economies and make economy work much better. Yeah, so absolutely. This is a very, very important aspect, I believe, for all countries of the world, and in particular in Mauritius. You see, because of our good human rights indicators in the past, there were a lot of investments coming in. But now our indicators are so bad internationally because of, a kind of dynasty politics in this country, and not in a legitimate manner. Things have badly changed, and there are international stations, press stations that have reported on it, including the BBC, French 24, and so on. But that's not enough. I believe if there are external forces, external from outside Mauritius, disability rights movements, not necessarily radical, but rather understand what we are doing. I believe that 3rd of December movement could take a big momentum. Lastly, I want to tell you something. Post-COVID, COVID is kind of a big excuse for government worldwide for the non-implementation of disability rights. And that's very, very important. We are doing it at the right time, in the right context, for the right reason. So we are bound to work together, not only India or part of India, but also we should be looking at places like Australia. We should be looking at places like Canada, and in particular the United Kingdom, where at the moment the cost of living is killing people. And the interesting thing about Oliver Lewis is that he got a very good track record with the European Court of Justice and the European Court on Human Rights. I think we just need to put our energy together.